Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I had been rolling west since just after sunrise. By the time I crossed the Texas line at Glen Rio, the sky looked like a sheet of aluminum and the wind pushed the empty shoulder grass flat. The ELD on my dash said I had a little under 2 hours of drive time left, and the Thermo King unit on the front wall of my refrigerated trailer held steady at 38 degrees. The load was produce out of Oklahoma City, pallets of lettuce and box greens stacked tight with air channels. Everything shrink-wrapped and labelled for a Los Angeles cross-dock. My name is Ethan Callahan, but on the radio, everyone calls me Red. The Peterbilt 579 under me had the MX-13 humming like it always did when I set the cruise around 65. I had coffee cooling in the cup holder, paperwork in a binder clipped to the passenger seat, and the low, constant chatter of Channel 19 hissing through my Cobra CB. I kept an eye on the mile markers as I rolled through the long open. It was past 10 p.m. by the time I reached the stretch east of Tucumcari. The wind carried dust and a light mist, the kind of mist that coats headlights and turns every sign into a dull rectangle until you are on top of it. To the south, lightning flashed, the kind that hangs behind clouds and lights the sky without showing a bolt. The wipers worked a lazy arc. I had a Love's truck stop plotted in the GPS, the one off exit 335, where I planned to top off diesel, grab a hot sandwich, and decide whether to shut down or push for another hour using my split sleeper option. I kept telling myself to hold steady, stay inside the lines, ride out the weather, and deliver what I promised on time. Around mile marker 217, I saw her. At first, she looked like a bundling of shadows against the guardrail. Then my low beams picked out the shape of a person. She stood on the shoulder, soaked through, one arm raised and waving in short, deliberate motions. Denim jacket, torn jeans, a small backpack hanging off one shoulder. No car, no hazard lights, no reflector triangle. Just the figure and the rain. Picking up hitchhikers is something you tell yourself you never do until the situation forms in front of you. I signalled, eased to the shoulder, and let the truck settle. I kept my four-ways on and watched my mirrors for traffic. The rain twisted in the wind and blew across the hood. I set the brake, reached for the mag light I keep by the door, and rolled the window down a few inches. "You okay?" I called out. My voice sounded thinner than I expected in the weather. She stepped closer and lifted her hands where I could see them. "Please," she said. "I need a ride to town. My car died on Route 66. I've been walking for hours. I need to get out of here." Her teeth chattered. The rain had darkened her hair and plastered it to her forehead. She kept looking over her shoulder toward the scrubland beyond the guardrail. "Name?" I asked, keeping my tone level. "Lena." I scanned the shoulder and the brush line. No other movement. No hidden vehicle. I checked the passenger side mirror for a second figure trying to approach unnoticed. Old habit. Satisfied, I popped the passenger door and reached across to unlock it. "There's a towel on the seat," I said. "Use it. Keep your hands where I can see them until you're in. Not trying to be rude, just cautious." She nodded so hard her wet hair shook. When she grabbed the handle and climbed in, I saw scrapes on her knuckles and dried mud on her calves. She pulled the towel around her shoulders and swallowed hard. "Thank you," she said. "I'm sorry. I know this is... I just needed out of the rain." "Route 66 breakdown, huh?" I glanced at the LD, my mirrors, and the dashed white lines beyond the spray. "We'll get to the Loves at Tucumcari in 20 minutes. It's warm, bright, and open all night. You can figure out a tow from there." She nodded again. "That's fine. That's perfect." I eased the Peterbilt back into gear, released the brakes, and fed the throttle. The trailer tugged into line. The tack settled. We merged into the slow lane, and I found 60 again. On the road, she warmed her hands under the dash vent and pressed the towel against her face. She gave short answers to basic questions. Her car was an old compact. It stumbled and died near a cross street with broken neon and a boarded storefront. Her phone had charge, but no service. She had walked with her thumb out and her head down. She'd not seen any patrol vehicles. "Do you live around here?" I asked. "No," she said. "I was cutting across to Albuquerque, a friend there. Look, I don't mean to sound strange, but something is wrong in town. The station I passed had people shouting and throwing things. I saw a man get pushed into a display rack. He fell and didn't get up. It felt wrong to stay. People get jumpy in storms," I said. "Maybe a fight. It happens." "That's what I told myself," she said, and her voice trailed off. Her eyes stayed fixed on the rain-blurred stripe of the highway. After a minute, she coughed. Not a dry throat cough, a deep one. She wiped her mouth with a towel, eyes squeezed shut. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said softly. "Just cold." The CB lit up with a burst of static. A voice came high and tight. "Anyone else seeing patrols running east with the flashes?" "A lot of them." Another voice answered, fainter. "They're stacking up at the overpass by the rest area. Something at the diner." I set a finger on the squelch and dialed it down a notch. The highway in my beams ran empty, dark and wet. A tractor trailer passed me in the left lane, lights glowing through the spray like twin coins. He slid back in front, his trailer's red and white conspicuity tape forming a neat rectangle that lifted and sank with the road. 10 minutes later, we turned down the ramp to the Loves. The lot shone under high white lights, water making mirrors out of every lane. I saw a half-dozen rigs fueling under the canopy, some bobtails tucked near the exit, and a few pickup trucks pulled up by the store. The air smelled like diesel and wet asphalt. I nosed into an open lane, lined up the tanks with the pump, and set the brakes. The rain beat on the hood and roof like 1,000 fingers. "Inside's got hot drinks," I said. "There's a diner counter on the right. You can warm up. I need to fuel and check the reefer." Lena nodded, still wrapped in the towel, and reached for the door handle. She had to push against the wind to get it open. Before she climbed down, she stopped and turned back. "Thank you," she said again. "I mean it." "Go on," I said. "I'll be in as soon as I swipe the card and start the pump." Out under the canopy, the rain had teeth. I swiped the card, entered the unit number and odometer, and lifted the nozzle. The diesel thudded into the tank, and the hose shivered. I walked forward to the trailer and checked the Thermo King readout. 38, steady. I opened the side door to look down the aisle between pallets. Dry, cool smudge of cold air rolled out and turned to fog. When I stepped inside the store, I felt the heat on my face and smelled coffee, fried eggs, and laundry detergent from the little aisle with travel-size bottles. The TV over the diner counter showed a news anchor with a serious face. A red banner scrolled under her. I caught phrases: unexplained violent incidents, multiple states, public health authorities, avoid large gatherings. At a nearby table, 2 drivers with bright orange safety vests leaned over their phones. The kitchen bell dinged. A clerk scanned a line of energy drinks for a kid in a hoodie. I spotted Lena at the end of the counter, hunched on a stool with her hands around a white mug. Her face was pale, more than cold would explain. I sat one stool over and nodded to the cook. Burger, plain, coffee. The cook, a woman with her hair in a tight bun, slid me a mug and poured. "You picked a good night to stop," she said. "State cops have been flying up and down since dinner. Something out at the old motel." "What kind of something?" I asked. "Don't know," she said. "We had a driver come in, bleeding from the forearm. Said someone bit him at the pump for no reason. We gave him a towel and told him to go to the clinic. He drove off like he had a second accelerator." I watched the TV again. The anchor cut to a helicopter shot of a highway interchange somewhere that looked nothing like Tucumcari, full of flashing lights and stopped cars. The sound was down and the subtitles ran fast. Outbreak of aggression. Authorities calling it an extreme behavioral response. Stay in your homes. If you see someone acting in a dangerous way, do not approach. Lena coughed. She hunched over the counter and pressed the towel to her mouth. When she lowered it, her nose bled a thin, bright line that she wiped with the back of her hand like she was embarrassed. I pulled a fresh napkin from the dispenser and set it within reach without making a big thing of it. "You allergic to anything?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, I'm fine. I think it's just the cold and rain. I haven't eaten since morning." "Get something real," I said. "Soup, bread, it'll sit better." She nodded and ordered chicken noodle. When the bowl came, the steam rose and fogged her face. The first spoonfuls put a little colour back in her cheeks. We might have sat there through midnight if not for the man who came through the glass doors with his shirt ripped at the collar and his eyes wild. He stumbled toward the clerk's counter and knocked over a display of phone charges. The clerk took a step back and raised his hands in that "I don't want trouble" pose. The man tried to speak and only managed a guttural sound. He grabbed the edge of the counter hard enough to whiten his knuckles. Another customer, a guy in a ball cap, reached out to steady him by the elbow. The man turned and lurched toward the customer so fast it looked staged. His hands clawed at the man's jacket. The man in the ball cap yelled and pushed him back. The sick man lunged again, mouth open, teeth bared like he was trying to bite through denim. The clerk grabbed the phone and shouted for someone in the back to call the police. A driver near the door stepped in and tried to peel the two apart. The sick man made a low sound and twisted with a strength that didn't fit his thin arms. I put cash on the counter and stood. "We're leaving," I told Lena, "right now." We moved toward the door as voices rose. Someone yelled to stop. Someone else shouted to lock the doors. I kept walking. Outside, the rain hit like a sheet. I scanned the fuel island. My hose had clicked off. A few lanes down, a man stumbled into a pump, smearing a dark streak across the yellow bollard. He turned his head at the sound of our door and focused on us like a camera finding a face. "Into the cab," I said. "Don't run, don't slip, just go." We climbed fast. I swung up behind her and slammed the door. I hit the starter and the engine caught. The wipers beat hard. A man ran past the front of my truck, arms flailing. A woman chased him with her hands up like she was trying to calm him or catch him. Down the lot, I heard a scream that sounded short and sharp, then the unmistakable sound of something heavy hitting metal. "Seatbelt," I said. I eased out, angled the long hood toward the exit, and waited for a gap. A pickup jumped the curb and cut across the lot. The driver had both hands on the wheel and didn't look anywhere but where he wanted to go. I let him pass, then pulled onto the access road and climbed the ramp back to I-40. On Channel 19, a dozen voices overlapped. I heard words like attacks, bites, police tape, National Guard, stay away from the rest area. One voice tried to organize it and failed. Nobody had the big picture. All we had was short-range reports and adrenaline. In the passenger seat, Lena pressed the towel under her nose again. She coughed, deep and tearing. She put a hand on my arm. "Please don't stop," she said. "Whatever you do, keep moving." I looked at her eyes. The pupils seemed a little unfocused. She had a fever sheen. Every breath came with a small hitch, and she swallowed like her throat hurt. I have seen enough sick people to know when something is not ordinary. "What happened in the town you walked through?" I asked. "You said you saw people knocked down." She shook her head slowly. "It wasn't a fight like I've seen before. People moved wrong. Like they didn't feel pain. They fixated on, I don't know, on other people. A woman banged her head on a door and didn't stop until someone pulled her away. There was blood on the floor and nobody called an ambulance. A siren started and then stopped mid-wail. I ran. I turned the cabin heat up 2 clicks. I thought about the bite at the pump. I thought about the way the man moved inside the store. I thought about the news banner and the way the anchor's voice held steady, like she had been trained to keep a neutral tone no matter what. My dispatch unit, an aging Omnitrax tablet, chirped with a priority message. I tapped it with one finger, keeping my eyes on the road, and the message filled the screen. Emergency advisory. Delay at your discretion due to public safety. Avoid urban areas. Company dispatch currently unavailable by phone. The rain came heavier. The wipers squealed. Somewhere east, sirens yelped, stretched, and faded. Traffic ahead started to stack in a way that did not match the hour. At first, it was just a few red brake lights. Then the brake lights multiplied. Then I saw hazard flashes ahead and the glow of angled headlights. The random geometry of a scene that started as order and fell apart. I signalled, slowed, and looked for an exit. The next off-ramp was closed by a row of cones and a state truck with its arrow board flashing left. The shoulder had a few stalled cars. Hoods up, drivers gone. I let the truck roll at 30, then 20, then barely more than walking as the interstate tightened to a stop. The rain tapped the mirrors and streamed off the visor. I leaned toward the windshield and saw the line of trouble. 3 vehicles tangled across both lanes and the shoulder. A sedan sideways with its airbags out, a box truck with its nose dented into the sedan's rear quarter, and a minivan tilted into the median mud. People stood between them, not talking, not trading insurance, but staring. Then, in my headlights, one of them grabbed another by the jacket and shoved. The second person fell hard, arms splayed, and did not get up. "Seatbelt stays on," I said, more to myself than to Lena. "Keep it on." The CB crackled with a voice I recognized, a gravelly Texas drawl. "Brake 19, this is Bulldog westbound at 218. You got to path through that jam up there." I leaned for the mic. "Bulldog, red here, looks blocked both lanes. Median's soft, might be a bypass if you can take the service road." "Copy, red. I got med supplies in a dry van and a state letter says deliver if able. I'm on the eastbound shoulder about to hop the crossover if it's clear between mileposts." I check mirrors. I check the gap at the crossover. You might make it if you do it smart and slow. Watch the soft dirt. You cut through the way station in 1.5 miles. There's a service road that parallels. 10-4. Anyone behind red best follow suit. Keep your eyes open. People not acting right. Bulldog out. I looked at Lena. She held her arms tight to her ribs and shivered. Sweat ran from her hairline, even though the cab air was warm. She tried to wipe her face and left a smear of red near her lip. Her eyes slid to the sleeper, then back to the windshield. "I'm sorry," she said, and her voice came thin. "I think I'm sick." I weighed it. If I asked her to step out now, I would leave a person in the rain among people moving like they were not themselves. If I kept her, I risked her condition getting worse beside me at 60 miles an hour. I pointed to the curtain that separates the cab from the sleeper. "There's a sleeping bag on the bunk. Lie down back there. Keep the curtain partly open so I can hear you. If you feel faint, tell me. Do not try to stand when I'm moving. Understand?" She nodded. She moved slow, like each step had to be negotiated. She slid the curtain, and I heard the soft sound of fabric and the rustle of the bag. I rolled forward an inch at a time as the traffic compressed. Up ahead, a man in a rain jacket stepped into my lane and raised a hand like he could direct a semi with a palm. I braked and kept the parking brake off. He turned his face toward my headlights, and his eyes reflected a dull grey. He put both hands on my bumper and pushed as if he could move 80,000 pounds by will. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Not words, not a request. A sound that stayed halfway between a growl and a breath. I kept my foot on the brake and my hand on the air horn, but did not use it. I glanced at my right mirror. The shoulder had space. I eased off the brake enough to roll, steered right and around him, and kept the truck moving. He slammed both hands on my fender and slipped on the wet pavement. He went down. I did not stop. In the left mirror, I saw him get up without using his hands, like a lever pulled him from the waist. At the crossover near the median, I saw Bulldog's rig in my high beams. He had nosed through the gap and was angled to take the eastbound shoulder 100 yards to the way station. He raised a hand out the window as he saw me. I followed the tracks he made in the mud and found firmer gravel where the shoulder widened. A trooper car sat dark near the scale house, with its driver's door open. The scale house lights were on. No one stood at the window. "Bulldog red," I said into the mic as we looped around the rear of the station. "I'm behind you. I've got a sick passenger." "Copy, Red," he said. "I got 2 cases of gloves and some basic supplies strapped up front. No meds for fever, more than over the counter. We'll meet at the service road turn." The service road paralleled the interstate for a while, then cut west behind low scrub and a line of failing fence. The rain softened. The lightning moved north. In my bunk, I heard Lena cough. It fell into a rhythm, 5 quick, then a pause, then 2 deep. I tried not to count them. I tried not to assign meaning. 10 miles later, the service road crossed a county highway I knew would bend toward the I-40 on-ramp near a small town with 1 stoplight. The town had a diner, a feed store with a faded sign, and a motel with doors that opened directly to the parking lot. I did not want to put my truck or my load anywhere near those doors. We could try to hop back on the interstate and roll west. We could also stay on the service road and aim for a truck turnout near a wind farm where the ground stayed dry even in a storm. "Bulldog, you got an ear?" I asked. "Go," he said. "Where you aiming?" "Gallup," he said. "Heard there's a checkpoint. Heard they're setting up a health screen there. Might be a rumour, but rumours can be right." "Copy," I said. "We'll try for the on-ramp. Keep it moving." When we came around the bend to the ramp, we saw the top of it clogged with cars, hazard lights blinking like a field of fireflies. People stood between doors. Some looked up at us like they were asking for help. Others looked down at their hands or phones like none of this was happening. A man pounded on the hood of a car and left print-shaped dents. "Not going that way," Bulldog said. "Stay on the back road. There's a ranch cut across at the next section line. I can see it on my tablet." We took the section line road, a ribbon of gravel between wire fences and low mesquite. The tractors and farm pickups of this county had tamped it firm, and the rain had not yet turned it to soup. I kept the truck slow enough to hold traction, but fast enough to feel like we were not waiting to be found. The radio chatter thinned as the interstate fell out of range. The world shrank to the sweep of my headlights and the red pinpricks of Bulldog's tail lamps. From the bunk, Lena's voice came small. "Red," she called. "I'm cold." "There's a fleece under the pillow," I said. "Drink water from the bottle in the net. Small sips." "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't tell you everything. I was in town because I was looking for someone. My sister. She worked at a small clinic and she didn't answer my calls. When I got there, the waiting room was empty. A chair was tipped over. I heard someone in the back. I went to look. A man stumbled out of an exam room and reached for me like he knew me. He didn't. I ran. Something was wrong with their eyes. It looked like they were looking past me at something only they could see. I kept my eyes on the road. "We'll get you help in Gallup," I said. "We'll get a health check, fluids, a cot under a tent, something organised." "Okay," she said, but she did not sound convinced. She lay quiet for a few miles, then the coughing returned. Slower now, deeper. After the coughing stopped, I heard her breathing fall into a long, even pattern that might have been sleep or might have been a kind of drift. We reached a T intersection with a highway sign that confirmed our position. West would take us toward Grants, then Gallup, then the Arizona line. East would take us back to the mess. I eased onto the westbound lanes. The highway was not empty, but it did not have the volume of the interstate. The few cars I saw kept a steady 60 and did not drift. We passed a State Department of Transportation truck, with its arrow board dark and its driver's door open. Beyond it, a small white SUV sat in the ditch with all 4 doors open. No one stood on the shoulder nearby. Around midnight, we crested a low ridge and saw the blue strobes of a roadblock ahead. A sign on a tripod read, "Checkpoint" in block letters. Traffic slowed to a single file. A uniformed person in a bright reflective vest stood with a flashlight and a handheld loudspeaker. Tents glowed under portable lights beyond, and I saw the dim shapes of cots and people moving among them. I felt a wash of relief so strong it surprised me. "Bulldog," I said. "Looks like the rumour's true." "Copy," he said, calm. "Follow my lead." We rolled to a stop where a trooper held up a hand. He spoke through a mask that muffled his voice. "Where you headed?" "Gallup westbound," Bulldog said from his open window ahead. "Medical supplies, palletized, labelled." He passed a clipboard through the window. The trooper scanned, nodded, waved him through. I pulled up and set the brake at the trooper's signal. I kept both hands visible on the wheel. "Where you headed?" he asked. "Los Angeles," I said. "Refrigerated produce, 38 degrees. I have a passenger who is unwell. Picked her up on the shoulder east of Tucumcari." The trooper's eyes shifted toward my sleeper curtain. "We have a screening area. Pull forward to the cone with the green tape. Turn off your engine. Do not exit until told." "Copy," I said, without thinking about how that slipped into my tone even here. I rolled forward to the green cone, set the brakes, and wiped my palms on my jeans. The portable lights made a hard white circle around the tents. A generator thumped. A person in scrubs and a face shield approached with a tablet in a plastic bag. "Driver name?" they asked. "Ethan Callahan," I said. "Any symptoms?" they asked. "No," I said. "Passenger is ill. Fever and cough. She is in the sleeper." "Do not open the curtain," they said, tone steady, rehearsed. "We will open the passenger door. Keep your hands on the wheel." I nodded. They climbed the steps and opened the passenger door carefully, staying outside the arc of the opening. "Ma'am," they called, "we're here to help. Please stay where you are." I heard the zipper of the sleeping bag. I heard Lena's voice from far away. "Okay," she said. They passed a small device on a plastic wand through the opening. "We're going to take your temperature with a non-contact scanner." Silence. A soft beep. Another soft beep. The person in scrubs looked at the tablet for a second longer than made me comfortable. "We'll need you to step out and come with us," they said. Lena appeared at the curtain, pale, eyes glassy, hair matted to her forehead. She clutched the towel in both hands, like it was a document she could not lose. When she set a foot on the step, her knee buckled. The person in scrubs caught her under the arm with practiced hands and guided her to the ground. 2 more people appeared with a rolling cot. They moved like they had practiced this a dozen times in a dozen different lots. Each motion careful, efficient, sure. "Driver," the person in scrubs said to me, "shut your engine off. Keep your windows up. Stay in your seat until instructed. You will be given guidance once we evaluate your passenger." I shut the engine down. The sudden quiet punched my ears. Without the idle, the rain and generator filled the cab. My fingers tapped the wheel, small, nervous taps. I watched the tent where they took her. The flap fell closed. I do not know how long I sat there. 10 minutes, 30. Time in that light had a way of unspooling and pooling. Then the tent flap opened, and the person in scrubs returned. The face shield had a stripe of fog at the top, where exhalations hit plastic. "Driver," they said, and their voice was careful. "Your passenger has a high fever and respiratory involvement. We're isolating her in a treatment area. We'll provide fluids and monitoring. We recommend you continue west and avoid stops in crowded areas. If you develop symptoms, fever, cough, confusion, pull over safely, call the number on this card and wait for instructions. Do not enter towns unless directed. Do you understand?" I wanted to ask 1,000 questions. Would she be okay? Where would they take her tomorrow? Could I leave her a note? Could I speak to her for 1 minute? I looked at the person's eyes. They were tired and focused, and full of a kind of work sense that told me what I could and could not ask. "I understand," I said. They handed me a card in a plastic sleeve, a phone number, a list of symptoms, a line that said, "Do not pick up strangers," a stamp with an official seal I could not read in the glare. "Bulldog," I said into the mic. "You through?" "I'm clear," he said. They routed me to a side lane. "I'm going to roll. You rolling?" "They kept my passenger," I said, and the words felt wrong and right at the same time. "I'll roll." "Keep it between the lines," he said. "We'll talk at the state line." I restarted the engine. The familiar vibration settled me. I eased off the brakes and pulled away as I was waved through. In my passenger seat, the towel lay folded where she had left it. I had to clamp my jaw to stop myself from reaching over to move it. I kept both hands on the wheel and watched my mirrors as the tents fell behind. The next hours were a procession of small decisions. I bypassed bright towns. I refueled at a nearly empty travel plaza where the clerk spoke through plexiglass and slid me a receipt without our fingers touching. I ate a sandwich in the cab and kept the CB volume low. Sometimes it went quiet for 10 minutes. Then it blasted alive with someone shouting a location and a warning. I learned to distrust the minutes of quiet more than the noise. As I climbed a long grade near Grants, the rain thinned to a mist, and the wind shifted to a head-on push that feathered the flags at the construction barrels. The Jake brake switch under my fingers felt like a talisman, but I kept it off on the downslope because the thrum echoes off the rock and carries too far in the night. I wanted to be one more moving shadow on a road that had seen too much. Near a rest area, I saw the outline of a big tent in the parking area. Not one of the official tents, but something thrown together with tarps and rope. Figures moved between cars. It did not look like a place to find help. It looked like a place to lose control. I kept the truck in the right lane and gave the exit a wide berth. Channel 19 came alive with Bulldog's voice, stable as a compass. Heads up westbound by 265. 2 pickups parked catty-corner across the road. Looks like someone's trying to make a roadblock. Left shoulder is clear if you give it a yard off the rumble. Keep your speed even and your trailer tight behind. Copy, I said. A minute later, I saw the shape of it. 2 trucks angled nose to nose like a gate. People stood behind them, too many people for that hour, their attention fixed on any vehicle that slowed. I did not brake. I kept a steady 55 and checked my mirror. No one followed me close. At the last moment, I drifted to the left shoulder, missed the mirror of the nearer pickup by inches, and felt the trailer tires rumble on the warning strip. I kept the wheels still and let the whole rig slide through the narrow seam and out into open dark. Behind me, a voice shouted something I could not make out. I kept rolling. Just before 3 a.m., I saw the glow of Gallup proper spread across the horizon, a field of sodium orange lights and the red dots of radio towers on the black hills. I expected more sirens. I heard none. The on-ramps and off-ramps were not empty, but they were not choked like east. I took the bypass and watched a string of ambulances sitting dark in a lot, doors open, no one around them. It looked like the staff had walked away mid-shift, or like they had been called somewhere and left the vehicles to be collected later. A short, slow upshift later, the CB turned to static, then clarity. A voice with a flat dispatch tone cut in. All westbound commercial traffic advise. Proceed at reduced speed. Do not stop for roadside assistance unless coordinated on this channel with State Patrol Unit identifiers. Avoid contact with pedestrians attempting to flag down vehicles. Repeat, do not pick up pedestrians. If you need medical evaluation, or if a passenger becomes symptomatic, stop at designated checkpoints only. I wanted very much to believe that someone was coordinating across states, that there were designated checkpoints, that all of this could be slotted into a plan. I looked at the passenger seat again, at the folded towel, at the small water bottle she had barely touched, and at the curtain that hung empty. I kept my eyes on the lines and let the miles unwind. At the Arizona line, I checked in with Bulldog. He sounded steady. He said he would push for Flagstaff and try to find a quiet industrial park to stage until daylight. We agreed to keep at least a mile apart. If one of us had trouble, the other would pull up behind at a distance and watch the mirrors while the first dealt with it. It was not a perfect plan. It was something. Somewhere west of the state line, the sky broke in long grey sheets, and I saw the jagged outline of mesas and the straight-backed silhouettes of posts holding power lines. Morning did not bring peace. It brought clarity. With clarity came small scenes that would have been invisible at night. A school bus on the shoulder with its stop sign deployed and no children. A minivan with its trunk open and groceries spilled just inside the bumper. A dog trotting down the median with its leash trailing behind, the loop of it flipping and catching on its hind legs with each step. As the sun edged up and lit the clouds from the underside, I felt the weight of what was next. I was one driver in one truck. I could get the produce to the cross-dock. I could keep moving and limit my exposure. I could radio and listen and respond to what I saw in front of me. But there would be moments that tested the rule on the card in the plastic sleeve. Do not pick up strangers. I heard the rule in the voice of the person in scrubs, and in the voice on the dispatch channel, and in the tired rumble of my own thoughts. The rule kept me alive. The rule cost something every time I followed it. By noon, the day had that washed-out high desert brightness that makes every object look too sharp. Bulldog and I tucked into an industrial park on the far side of Winslow, where the buildings stood square and the lots were big enough for a U-turn if you were measured. We parked nose out, 50 yards apart, engines idling low. We kept our doors locked, we ate, we sipped water. We watched the empty street and the sky and the shadows of hawks sliding over the ground. When I closed my eyes, I saw the fluorescent glow of that tent at Gallup, the silhouette of Lena on the cot, the face shield of the worker reflecting the bright light. I thought about the ways she had said she was sorry. I thought about the ways she went quiet in the sleeper, and how the cab felt bigger and emptier by the minute. I do not think of myself as a person who carries a lot of regret. This felt like a bag you shoulder without a strap, awkward and heavy and digging into your ribs. We rolled again in the afternoon when the scanner said the Interstate West was clear enough. Clear enough, I learned, means the hazards were there but predictable. Abandoned vehicles on the shoulder, a few places where someone had tried to blockade a lane and given up, and the occasional group of people at an on-ramp looking for help. In normal times, I would have stopped without argument. I would have offered a ride to the next exit for a person whose car was out of gas, or a tow on a strap to pull someone out of the soft gravel. These were not those times. I kept both hands on the wheel and both eyes on the road, and I did not pick up anyone. By the time the sun angled low, we passed through a stretch where the road goes arrow straight and the land rolls in gentle ridges. The shadows made stripes across the asphalt. I lost Bulldog in my mirror over a rise and found him again as we slid down the other side. The radio went quiet, then clean. "Red," he said, voice softer. "You still with me?" "I'm here," I said. "I heard a thing," he said. "Came over a private channel from a supplier who knows a guard unit captain. They're consolidating checkpoints west of here. Word is they can't hold the small ones. They'll focus on big city perimeters for now. Out here, it'll be sporadic. If you see a tent, it might not be staffed. If it's staffed, they might pack up without notice." "Copy," I said. "I stopped for one and it helped. I won't count on another. I just hope she—" I let the sentence trail. "I know," he said. "We all got someone we hope for. You did what you could, and more than most." We made the desert crossing with the kind of attention you get only when it's quiet enough to hear the radio's static hiss and the engines hum like a bass line under your thoughts. It was easy in that light to believe you could outrun what was behind. It was easy to believe that if you kept moving, all of it would shrink to a story you told over coffee one morning about a bad night in New Mexico. But then the radio would crackle with someone screaming a location and a warning, and the illusion would fold up and slide under the seat with the maps. Near Holbrook, a highway sign flashed emergency alert in orange block letters, then rolled to a message: "Avoid urban areas. Follow official guidance. Do not pick up pedestrians." It repeated, then went blank. A minute later, the sign lit again with the same message, as if the system had a glitch, or as if it was the only message left that had a chance of being delivered. Toward evening, we separated. Bulldog aimed for a distribution center outside Flagstaff where he thought he could deliver and lock down. I aimed to clear the mountains and put as many miles between me and the night as I could before my LD forced a stop. We wished each other luck and signed off like we had known each other for years and would see each other again. Maybe we would. Maybe we wouldn't. I have learned not to pin too much on the maybes. I parked in a wide gravel turnout that locals use for staging heavy equipment. The wind had died. The sky had opened to a high, cold blue that slowly turned grey. I set the brake and let the engine idle for a minute to cool the turbo, then shut it down. The sudden silence made my ears ring until the rustle of dry grass and the tick of cooling metal filled the edges. I locked both doors and closed the curtain. I lay on the bunk and stared at the ceiling for a long time. I did not sleep so much as drift in and out of a watchful doze. When I woke, my throat felt raw from breathing desert air and talking more in one night than I do in some weeks. Just before dawn, I had a dream that felt less like a dream and more like my brain processing. In it, I saw the Loves with all the lights out, and the man at the counter standing still with his hands at his sides. I saw the tent at Gallup empty except for the cot. I saw my truck rolling by itself down a 2-lane road, the wheel moving a few degrees left and right, as if guided by a quiet hand. When I opened my eyes, a shaft of early light cut the edge of the curtain. I listened to the world outside, waited for a sound that would make me start the engine and go, and heard nothing but the wind. I rolled out around 6:30 a.m., got the engine warm, and checked my load straps. I walked the trailer and thumped each tire with my stick. I checked the 5th wheel lock, the airlines at the glad hands, and the fuel caps. The checklist routine pulled my mind into a place with order. I climbed back in, set the coffee to drip in my little 12-volt maker, and watched the first vapor curl from the spout. Then I saw movement in my driver's mirror. A figure came from the brush line, slow, hands at their sides, head tilted. My heart bumped once hard and settled. I watched the gate, not a runner, not someone flailing, a person walking like they had been awake all night. I cracked the window an inch. "Keep walking," I said, not loud, not unkind. "I can't help you. There's a checkpoint in town." I lifted the card with the phone number, like showing it would make it real. The figure stopped 20 yards away and lifted their head. Their face had the slack look of someone depleted. Then they took a step toward my truck. I hit the starter and the engine caught. The sound sent the figure back 2 paces. They turned and walked away, hands at their sides, like the spark I gave them did not catch. I watched until they were a small movement in the brush, then gone. I rolled out. My headlights cut the gravel and painted the low sage with a cold white. I thought of Lena and the towel on the passenger seat. I reached over, folded it tighter, and set it behind the seat where I keep spare fuses and a small tool roll. I did not want to throw it away. I did not want to see it. As I aimed the hood back to the highway, the radio crackled with a voice I had not heard before, calm, clean, clipped like the recorded voice of an airline pilot. "If you are still out there, avoid populated areas. If you see people who appear disoriented or aggressive, do not engage. If you have passengers who become symptomatic, do not take risks. We are working to restore order. Help is coming. Stay in your vehicle. Keep moving." It sounded like a recording. It also sounded like exactly what I needed to hear to put the truck in gear and ease onto the highway with the long white lines running under me like thread. I did not know if help was coming in a day or a week or a month. I did know how to follow the shoulder, how to read the weather on the horizon, how to load and deliver produce so it arrives crisp and cool, even after a storm. I knew how to watch my mirrors and give the truck in front of me space, and how to pick a lane that keeps my options open when the unexpected happens. The sun rose, the asphalt warmed. The world kept its wide spaces and its straight lines for a few more hours. I drove. I did not pick up anyone else. I did not stop in any place where doors opened to a crowd. I kept the engine at a steady hum, and the reefer at 38, and the tyres within the lines. On the far side of the desert, in a city that still ran on schedules, a cross-dock manager would check in a load of lettuce and mark it as received. He would not know about Lena, or the mile marker, or the tent, or the roadblock made of pickup trucks. He would only know that the pallets were cool and the labels matched the manifest, and that, for one more day, the system clicked once in the right direction. By the time I reached the state line after that, the card in the plastic sleeve had a crease where my thumb always landed. The rule on it had become the kind of rule you do not break if you want to keep moving. Do not pick up strangers. Not tonight. Maybe not for a long time. I kept the truck pointed west and watched the road break and smooth, rise and fall, turn and straighten. In the mirrors, the past got smaller until it was a shape against the sky. Then a line. Then a memory I could carry without dropping anything else. Somewhere beyond the next ridge, another driver keyed up and asked if anyone had eyes on the roadworks near the river. I keyed my mic and told him what I saw. We talked about lane closures and the best fuel price and whether a certain little store stayed open after dark. We did not talk about the tent or the people moving wrong. We did not have to. It was in our voices when we said the ordinary words, the weight behind the vowels, the way we left a space after we said copy, like we were listening for something else. I stayed on frequency. I stayed pointed forward. I crossed another mile marker with a number I knew I'd remember for as long as I keep driving. 217. A place on a long ribbon where I made a choice that kept me alive and will echo in my head for the rest of the road. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.